Automatic remote sensing tools can help inform many large-scale challenges such as disaster management and climate change. While a vast amount of spatio-temporal satellite data is readily available, most of it remains unlabeled. Without labels, this dataset is not very useful for supervised computer vision tools. In this work, we introduce Change-Aware Contrastive Learning or CACo to improve self-supervised learning for satellite images. Our key insight is that satellite images contain more information due to their spatio-temporal structure. For example, the temporal information can be used to learn invariances. Additionally, we can incorporate meaningful change information to further improve our representation. Our results indicate that this novel loss formulation can learn better representation for several downstream remote sensing tasks. Hi, I'm Utkarsh Mal, and we are looking at our work on change-aware contrastive learning for satellite images at CVPR 2023. This work was done with Bharat Hariharan and Kavita Bala at Cornell University. Applying computer vision to satellite images can help us solve many recognition problems such as change detection or land use classification. Solving these problems can in turn help in monitoring and solving large-scale challenges such as climate change. However, training all these models require a large amount of labeled data, which is difficult to obtain. This issue is even more exacerbated as labeling satellite images require expertise. One way of solving this issue of a limited labeled data is using self-supervision. Self-supervised learning methods can learn a good representation from large amount of unlabeled data, which is readily available for satellite images. This representation can then be further fine-tuned with very few labeled examples. One straightforward way would be to use standard self-supervised methods on satellite images. However, the spatio-temporal structure of satellite images is much richer than the unstructured collection of internet images on which such methods are developed. So in this work, we ask how can we best leverage the structure of satellite images for better self-supervised learning. More specifically, we look at three such properties of satellite images. Firstly, we look at satellite images over time. For a single location, we can access images over a very long range of time. The temporal information provides information about seasonal and meaningful changes that can be a useful signal for learning. The time difference is not the only useful signal. A location may or may not have meaningful changes even after a long time. We enforce our method to be aware of the meaningful changes from these images. Finally, we look at satellite images spatially, where we present a novel geographical sampling strategy that produces the most informative samples. We next look at how these insights can lead us to an improved representation. Many existing methods for self-supervised learning are based on a contrastive learning framework. In this framework, the representation is learned by using negative and positive examples. The embedding must learn to pull closer positive examples and push apart negative examples. Note that there are various methods for performing such contrastive learning. However, an overarching theme for all of these methods is the same. We can now look at ways of improving this contrastive learning framework for satellite images. We first look at how having access to multiple temporal images of the same location can help us. Existing techniques such as seasonal contrast or CACo have focused on using images with a gap of few months as positives to learn the seasonal invariances. We build from CACo and additionally focus on images with a larger time gap. Our key insight is that images far apart in time correspond to actual changes. Therefore, we modify this contrastive loss by using images far apart in time as negatives, while still using short-term pairs as positives. However, not all long-term pairs should be treated as negatives. We do not observe meaningful changes at many locations even after many years, such as the pair on the right. Therefore, we need to incorporate such unchanging locations in our formulation. We make slight adjustment to our method. We still pull positive pairs closer, but we push apart long-term pairs if and only if there is a change between the pair. We call this new conditional loss term as change-aware contrastive loss or CACo. But there is a problem. We do not have the information about when a location changes. In fact, the problem of change detection requires us to learn a representation. But in our formulation, we need the change information to learn a good representation. So we run into a chicken and egg problem. We solve this problem by bootstrapping our representation. A representation starts from scratch, and then we iteratively use the representation to find change estimates, and then use these changes to improve the representation. The figure shows a histogram of change estimates at an intermediate training step. Lower change estimate indicate no long-term changes as they can be seen on the left, and pairs on the right are harder negative for contrastive learning when compared to the location-based negatives of prior work. Please see the paper for more details on estimating changes and thresholding. We next look at the geographical sampling. We propose a stronger Gaussian sample around the urban areas. Additionally, we reject samples that completely fall into the ocean. The figure compares a sample against the baseline sampling strategy specifically for a coastal city. Our method can pick more informative locations than the baseline. We now look at some of our results and experiments. For majority of our experiment, we use MoCo V2 or momentum contrast as the contrastive learning framework. We train a ResNet 18 and ResNet 50 model on two different datasets of sizes 100,000 and 1 million. We evaluate the performance of the learned representation by evaluating on various downstream tasks such as land cover classification, change detection, semantic segmentation, and event retrieval. We first show that all the components that we leverage can help us in learning a better representation. We use the CACo model as our baseline. Training CACo with better spatial samples lead to more than 1 point of gain on various metrics on these two datasets. Using long-term temporal information alongside the short-term information leads to an additional gain of a few more points. Finally, adding the change awareness leads to an additional improvement and the best performing model. We then compare our method against several comparable self-supervised methods on these various tasks. We see an improvement in performance on all of these tasks compared to the previous state of the art, as well as off-the-shelf self-supervised learning algorithms. To conclude, we presented a novel self-supervised loss that leverages properties unique to spatio-temporal satellite images. More specifically, we looked at how long-term temporal information, change awareness, and better geographical sampling can result in more informative data for self-supervised learning. We show how all three of these improvements are important and lead to significantly better performance. For example, we see an 8.5% relative improvement for change detection over the best performing baseline with our method. Thank you for listening to this presentation. Our code and dataset can be found using the mentioned link or the QR code.